Hello and welcome to the 66 Think Tank. Tonight we're taking a bit of a diversion from the normal thing and just having one of our patented chats. The suggested theme is our best experiences as role players. As always, if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. We love having subscribers. I'm just going to start now by going to Chris for the check-ins. Chris, how are you?
I am, well, tired and strung out because I was up all night watching the election. Yeah, I don't think that we'll call that a good night and leave it at that. So I'm sort of tired, strung out, on too much caffeine, depressed. So that's where I am. That's my check-in. So let's hear something happier. Josh, how was your week? And make it happy.
I wish I could. No, the weather has just been ballsing everything up. So it's been flipping in and out of cold to warm, cold to warm, cold to warm at the warehouse. I've been going in and out of different layers. And it's been busy because I've had a 4-day week, which means I've had to catch up on a whole day's worth of work. But otherwise, I really can't complain because it's the weekend. So.
Right. Okay, that's not too bad. Mark, how's your week been?
Yeah, pretty good. Making good progress on things at work. I'm no longer ill, which is nice. And yes, it's all okay. And I've just booked flights away on Monday morning to go to Italy again. It should be quite nice at this time of year. So I'm looking forward to that and getting some, actually, I'm about to say fun measurements and fun working, which is weird because it's what I'm actually going to be doing. Yeah, so overall pretty good.
Excellent. Good. Let's go over to M. M, how's your week been?
Interesting. I've now gone from being pregnant to suddenly heavily pregnant, and I found out some interesting things this week. My thyroid has decided to die, and my blood count's gone down, so I'm now on a variety of 5 different pills a day that will hopefully make me really energetic.
So they basically put you on speed?
Yes, essentially speed.
Excellent. You're happy because you're on lots of drugs. Pat, how are you?
I am unhappy because Emily is on lots of drugs, and I am not. And I'm getting on all right. Good time. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I actually get a weekend this week, so I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent.
Good.
Great. Thank you, Pat. So, Mark, let's hand over to you for tonight's main meeting.
Yeah, so as Pat said, we're talking about the good times we've had as players, and particularly the best times we've had. But rather than just swapping anecdotes back and forth, the thing we're particularly interested in doing is extracting what really makes a good time and how you can maybe help that happen, and what I think then start thinking about what you can enjoy out of roleplay, what makes the best kind of situations. So I'll probably start with kind of like maybe a couple of general points. I mean, one of the best times I had was actually going to a convention, because I've been going to IndieCon, down in Dorset every year for small independent publishers. And I had a couple of very, very good sessions there, just running in a little local game. It was one of the things that really helped was the fact that the group got together, meshed, and we joked. It was a really dark setting. We were mental patients in a mental asylum possessed by ghosts, and I was playing a cannibal who didn't know he was. He had to kind of kept having flashbacks, but it was actually turned into a remarkably light-hearted session. So I kind of really got into being their particular kind of brand of madman. But it's that kind of thing. I mean, I found it as useful because it was the fact that everyone got into character very quickly and played very quickly. And is that something else that other people have found? Or has anyone had kind of occasion where they found it's just gripped and gone right from the word go?
Yeah, like I found it, and I found this a bit in a GM as well, is that if you've got a group that doesn't gel, no one has a good time. Or even worse, one person is having an amazing time and the group is suffering. But as a player, yeah, if you've got a good group that you can instantly mesh with, you can have a lot of fun because you haven't got an awkward time of playing with people you're not too sure about. If you just suddenly click, then suddenly you can get in straight to the game and have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I've got a similar occurrence running Ghostbusters at a convention, actually. We just sat down to the table, two guys I didn't know anymore. I'd made the mistake of setting the game in the convention hall, and the two people who came to the table actually worked in the convention hall, so they knew the layout better than I did. And that was an interesting game, very interesting game. But it just a load of fun. Also, every time we've ever run Red Dwarf for somebody who we don't really know, that always seems to go down well. It gets people like Red Dwarf.
Yeah, it's cool. The gelling element is the really major thing, but one thing to get about that one is that when the humour happened, the humour flowed naturally. Because I've been in a couple of games where people have tried to run a funny game, and the second you try, it stops working. It's something that the best ones have always been where everyone's just kind of got in and it just kind of happened as flow from result of what people have said, what people are doing, everyone's role playing. I think that's what really makes for kind of the best times role playing, even if it's actually a comparatively dark kind of setting.
There is something definitely about the convention games, because you get that random mix of players, that sometimes you get that group and it just clicks. And particularly I find that sort of later on, in the convention in the evening, getting the humour out of the situation, the group comes in and just clicks, you can get that instant, you don't have to try, and you're exactly right, Mark. When someone writes a funny scenario, I always cringe. But the funniest experiences I've had playing is when it's been a straight scenario and the group has just, found it. Not found everything funny, it's just that we've played it like, rather than a dark, serious film, we've made it a light-hearted PG-13 film, and we should go away feeling good from.
Yeah, I have to say, there is kind of a flip side to that almost, because there have been con games I've been at when I've been looking at the other tables and thinking they look like they're having so much more fun than we are. I remember the first conquest we went to. We were sitting in. I don't know what the game was, but it was all right. It wasn't amazing, but we looked over the table and there was a bunch of guys sat around wearing Captain Scarlet hats, and you just think, I want to be in that game, and that's a bad sign, You think you want to be in a different thing. But yeah, I'd say that. Well, going back to Red Dwarf, whenever I've run Red Dwarf, we never write a scenario for it. I just let people write characters and just let them interact, and it's always more fun than anything I could have written myself. So.
I think that's actually a really key point. It's not writing the scenario, it's the idea of having something which is spontaneous. And things which just kind of run themselves, and a game which is run by players interacting with each other, interacting with the world, so you still have a strong GM role, but it's where it's spontaneous, and you always get that feeling of freedom. Because we found that with Pathfinder game we were running, we actually broke the plot. I think from the first thing or at least broke the GM's intention, was the first thing any player actually said. I mean, we're in a tavern, because it's Pathfinder, you start games in taverns. The party had met each other before, and one of the first things that happens there, we can hear sounds of a riot starting outside, and the watchman comes in and tells us to move on. The first thing that gets said is "fuck off, copper," from the barbarian character. And then the whole thing kind of dissolved from there as we tried to find various ways of engaging with this particular thing. And that was quite a fun moment. We laughed at it, but it also really set the tone for the character, and it's like a chaotic moment, us relying on spontaneous interaction.
I'm actually reminded. Sorry, I am jumping in a lot, but I was reminded of the first Slay Industries game we played. Because anyone who knows Slay Industries will know it's grim, dark. It's a lot of fun, but it is very, very dark. But my character, my second character, I think, had recently died. So I'd rolled up a new character, and I decided to go for the strongest, toughest character ever. I went for this big kind of guy who was very... and in my mind, he was very stoic. And we got to the introduction for my character. My character showed up at the door of another character. My character was a kind of like monster, essentially. Like I think they're called. Well, no, I know they're called Stormers. They're like big monster troll men. And Chris Tordell, who's on here occasionally, his character opens the door, looks my character up and down. His reaction was to ask me if my character slept. He literally just went, "Do you sleep?" And suddenly there was this click. My whole interpretation of my character had altered, flipped on a knife edge, and I just went, sometimes.
Sometimes I sleep, sometimes I close my eyes, and then I open them again.
Yeah, I was essentially playing him as a puppy for the rest of the scene.
He was amazing.
And it's a good story, but it highlights kind of again another point. It's where one of the best. Another one of the really good moments I've had is it's very much like the one you had. It's where you've got an idea for the character, but it's the moment when you first open your mouth and the character comes out. It's that particular thing. I did it again in the Pathfinder game with the gnome character I was playing. Sort of doing it very fast talking, kind of just gabble stuff at people. But it's when you first start running the personality. And I don't know anybody else, but I always find that I never know what the character is actually going to be like until I start playing. So it's like a minute of first opening that I open into it, and then before that I haven't planned anything.
Again, similar to that, it's always fun when the group almost get behind a character. We found out a lot of our groups is we've had it a few times where one of us will make a remark about the character's weight or something, and then suddenly that becomes a thing. Like I had a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay character, Ava, who was a horrible little halfling, but her distinguishing feature was an unusual smell. Suddenly it turned Ava, because all of a sudden she wasn't just like a smelly, it wasn't just like, oh, she was a naughty little halfling. It's like, no, she was a horrible little tramp who rolled in filth, wasn't allowed in places, she just slept with pigs, and she became like one of the most horrific characters I've ever had, and had so much fun, and we all had lots of fun with her. Like Chris Tordell again used her as a weapon and threw her in the face of a highwayman who then got the plague because he was infected with all of her diseases.
You just reminded me about Diego with that.
Oh, and Diego as well. We had a character of mine for Slay which was made as a troll character for our friend Alex. So I thought, oh, I'm going to go against the grain. Wraith Raiders in Slay are meant to be very slim, they're very serious, athletic, snipery characters. So I said, okay, my Wraith Raider is going to be, he's going to be fat, he's going to be really lazy, he's going to drink beer. And I think he did something really great. Have you just cut off the...
No, it's still there.
And I did something like a disarmed a bomb. And I shouted Diego. Then everyone started shouting Diego.
We gave her an accent.
Yeah, and everyone's decided that Diego should be in a Mexican accent. So whenever I did something, I didn't even have to say it. Someone around the table would just shout, Diego! And we had a lot of fun. He become like a mascot really for the group. And it's just a lot of fun when the group can get behind a character and then all of a sudden it changes your perspective of how you are going to play them.
Just going to sort of like... I don't know whether people, Mark was saying that, he doesn't know his characters until he sort of starts to play them. I'm sort of similar to that. But one of the things I find with my regular group is that there's 4 of us. Some of us have been playing together for 30 plus years. We know it, and we all take turns GMing. So any given combination of 3 players, we've played together a lot. And there's the characters, and then there's the constant back chatter between the players. And there's a sort of, whatever our characters are, and we'll be role-playing the characters and everything like that, but the moment we're not role-playing the characters, there's a constant back chatter between the players, and we're just old married couples nagging at each other. We've got a character, Paul, for various reasons, took 1 level of fighter. He's a cleric, but he took 1 level of fighter. And we're constantly going, oh, well, if you're a 9th level cleric, you'd be able to cast that spell now. And we just haven't constantly taking the piss out of his 1 level of fighter. Anytime he can't do anything, it's because you took that 1 level of fighter. And it's nothing to do with the character, it's the metagame for people around the table. And we play this constant game through all our, regardless of the game setting or characters, there's this constant dialogue between us, which is completely independent.
It's a lot of fun, and that's the main thing. It's one of the really great things on that is, it's one of the great things about role playing is you've got a good group of friends together, and it just kind of serves an excuse to sit down together and then have a massive bickering and have just a massive bickering fest. I mean, we do that with the vampire game we run every month. We bicker a lot in character because we're playing vampires, and that's basically what they do. But we do it out of character as well the whole time. It's nice to have a few running jokes, also kind of generate fresh stuff, and it makes it. I mean, that's kind of the real core of the experience for me. I mean, the game is part of it. It's enjoying going through the story, but for the most part, it's just sitting down with a bunch of friends and doing that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. I mean, we've talked a bit about spontaneity and things, but I mean, a lot of games involve, in a sense, an awful lot of combat in the games. They have all this physical stuff. They have this kind of elements of violence that takes place. Is that something that people particularly enjoy? Has anyone got any kind of major experiences from that at all?
I have a great story about combat. I've been waiting for this. The reason I've been so quiet during the whole thing is because I've never really played convention games, so I couldn't really join in on that. And pretty much Pat and Emma covered the exact same points I was going to make. So, combat. Back when I first started playing role-playing games in 2007, the first system I played was Werewolf the Forsaken by White Wolf. Absolutely amazing game, even to this day, still one of my favourite systems ever. So anyway, I, as per almost tradition, played the heavy hitter character. Isaac Garrison, 7 foot tall, of just pure apathy and snark. He was awesome. So anyway, long story short, we chased 3 mages to their base at Burton College, because it's set in Burton-on-Trent, and we were ready to get into a proper barney with them, and my character's usual battle tactic is to go full werewolf and get stuck in there. So anyway, they go, right, we're going to scout out the area. We think they're in that room there. Keep an eye out and see if they escape. So my character, being obscenely practical, decided, okay, screw this. I've had enough of waiting. It's been 10 minutes in game time. He looks over and sees a car, a Mini Cooper. He goes, okay. What's all my stat bonuses? Okay. Goes full werewolf form. He goes, right, this should be enough. Picks it up, throws it. So he throws it through the window of the building, just as the other 2 party members come in. And he crushes the mages, just dead. There's no way they could have defended against that. They were caught unaware, so they weren't allowed to use any form of teleportation spell. So I didn't realise I killed them until I turned to the GM and went, so what do the mages do on their turn? And he went, no, they don't do anything, they're dead. I mean, the whole point behind this is DMs shouldn't be afraid to just, if the players can find a creative way around combat, shouldn't necessarily have to run the combat, if that makes sense. Every combat can be gotten around in some form or another. Or, again, the players can just go straight into the combat and just play it out normally.
Yeah, it's kind of having it's really, again, it's freedom. I think having role-playing freedom is a really good thing to have, rather than kind of being given this sort of mechanic of, and now you're going to go into this combat, there are these turns, you go plot, and it's great to be able to kind of come up with a creative way around that. I mean, Chris, you've been more involved in game design. Have you got kind of anything on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned the word freedom. I mean, that's a lot of what it comes down to. As a player, I like the freedom. But in combat, what I like to be able to do is try and find an alternative way or an unexpected way to solve the problem. I mean, solving the problem might involve obliterating the monster still, but in just some way we can't do it. And I think one of my favourite ones is we were sort of quite, moderately high-level D&D characters, and I was playing a bard. I'd been playing this. I'd deliberately chosen a bard to be awkward, and because they're useless. And I'd struggled up through the levels, and then we suddenly find ourselves in this big, huge combat with this, an absolutely massive giant, 40-foot massive Titan-level giant sort of thing, and he's about to, come and completely squash the entire party. And then I suddenly go, oh, a bard, grease spell I've got on my list. Bang! Cast a grease spell on him. Monster falls down. GM looks at the sort of stats, says, well, actually it's really shit in his decks and constantly fails to get up. And all of a sudden, the party can completely butcher the monster. This major encounter the GM had set up. We butcher the monster with barely breaking into a sweat. And that's what I like. They're sort of my favourite experience as players, because it's that freedom to the GM allowing you to subvert them. They're not forcing you just to stand there and hit the monster as everyone expected, but also that creativity of finding that one spell or that one ability which is just going to pull your ass out of the fire.
We've had that abused a little bit in the same say game we've been talking about. This is literally the only campaign I have played. I've been GMing ever since.
You've been playing mine.
Yeah, there's Neo. But one of the characters was a quantum mathematicist. In Slay Industries, there is a race of quantum mathematicists. They use maths to affect the universe on a quantum level. And he'd figured out that he could use his ability to teleport grenades inside enemy armor. Now, anyone who's played Slay Industries will know this. Armor is a massive part of the game. Everybody is wearing armor, which is like 3 inches thick and can shrug bullets aside like nobody's business. And he was just sitting there, and every time something showed up that he didn't want to deal with, he'd go, whoop, and it would explode. Every time. And because the GM who was running it had never thought of this as being something people could do. But it was completely within the rules. So he had absolutely no way of dealing with it. And I think for the whole company, he never really figured out what to do.
Yeah, I like it. It's just that finding the alternative way. And when we playing a lot of the early AD&D, classic dungeon crawl type things, where they made no sense. You got random treasure and all the rest of it. We ended up with one of those eternal bottles. Take the cork out, water pours out forever. And we came across this dungeon which was beating the crap out of it. So we just decided to flood it. We just camped at the top, took the bottle, and just sat there and drowned the dungeon with it. And the GM goes, well, actually, there's nowhere for water to go, and the monsters can't come out. So eventually we just sort of completely defeated this thing by flooding it and taking the treasure then. And yeah, it's that freedom and the GM rolling with it, I think, is a critical thing. As a player, when I do something, I want the GM to go see what I'm trying to do and let me do it in a way which, is fun for other players as well, keeps it fair and things like that, but gives you that freedom.
One of the cruelest things, I don't know why that reminded me of one of the cruelest things I ever did as a GM, was in a game I ran. They had a pair of magical castanets, which when they were played produced a random magical effect. And very early in this adventure, the characters had been captured by pandas, because that's the kind of game it was. Basically they bargained for their freedom because one of them had something the pandas wanted.
Roller skates.
Roller skates, that's it. So they start playing the magical castanets, and when they start playing the magical castanets, gold started to fall from the sky. So they were really pleased. So they kept playing the magical castanets at every opportunity, and I think like the 5th or 6th time they did it, I just randomly transported them back in time through their own time streams to the previous encounter with the pandas. But now, of course, they didn't have the items because they'd already given it to those same pandas.
We also ruined the economy.
Yeah, they also ruined the economy.
It's pretty interesting. We had kind of a thing to a lesser extent, sort of coming across a fun use of powers. And it starts to touch on something else, which is not quite the gamesmanship, but there's a lot of fun to be had in the game of optimizing characters, putting together builds. I know a lot of people enjoy it. It's not necessarily been always my cup of tea. I prefer to build a character rather than to build a character sheet. but a lot of people do that. We found a very useful one actually with D&D, was particularly if you're doing anything low level. Any of the, not D&D Pathfinder, any of the sorcerers, for example, you get this thing called colour spray. It basically kind of shoots random colours at people and it dazes them. So the number of situations we got out dealing with random bandits, angry peasants, low-level stuff, we go, taste the rainbow, motherfuckers! And it just puts people out of action. We thought that was fantastic. It was particularly the first moment we did it. Then we kind of this sort of one sort of moment of, ooh, we've got a handy way of getting out of a lot of these encounters. This is brilliant. So we did that quite a lot. Josh, have you got anything to raise? You've not said anything for a little while.
Yeah, killing monsters in unexpected ways. For example, using their own attacks against them. Now, this is a story that happened relatively recently in M's game on Tuesdays. So she's got these creatures called grub girls, which are essentially, for all intents and purposes, glutton demons. And we got to a fight with 3 of them at the same time. And they're not small, they are pretty big. And one decided to chow down on my character. And for once, I wasn't playing a heavy hitter character. My current character is a scout, long story. I can't be able to describe because it's just taken far too long. He's quite something. So anyway, I get paralysed with fear, as per Savage World Shaken rules, which have screwed me over more often times than I can count. And it grabs hold of me and starts eating me. So, I'm being eaten alive by this glutton demon, and our resident mage decides to go, okay, I'm going to cast telekinesis on you. So the character does, and I'm stuck in the throat of a glutton demon, and it's slowly choking to death on me. I then confound the issue further by essentially filling its belly with paralytic venom, because my character could spit poison. It's a long story again. And it dies. A glutton demon died choking to death from its own attack.
As I say, it's just finding a way of getting around that, and kind of attacking a monster in a creative way. Because otherwise you are limited to, I can output this amount of damage per turn, that kind of thing. It's very nice, and it's again, it's kind of using freedom. I think there's one point that we keep kind of coming round to here is one of the things that makes a good time for players is the actual GMing style. Because we focus so far on what's been a good time for that, and we seem to keep coming around to this loop of it's great when the GM lets you do this, or it's great when the GM kind of lets you do that. So that's kind of made it to a conclusion we can draw from the whole thing. Josh, go for it.
Yeah, on the subject, it's something that's been bugging me for a while about my game. So on my Sunday game, we've been playing 2 of the campaigns for Pathfinder, Curse of the Carrying Crown and Way of the Wicked. And don't get me wrong, it's all well and good having a set-out adventure before you, but in the end of the day, it's still searching for the right answer. There is maybe 1 or 2 right answers, and this is exactly how it's going to affect the plot. In all essence, your characters don't really have a bearing on how the future adventure will turn out. I mean, I've only been DMing myself for about 6 months now.
Okay.
And I decided to run a freeform adventure, and because I wanted my players to feel like they were doing something. I mean, yes, the main plot's there, but their actions and their characters themselves will fuel the plot. In pre-gens, your character's past hopes and aspirations don't do jack for it unless the DM specifically puts it in. So as a player, I've always enjoyed more freedom ones than pre-gen.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that general point. I mean, Emily, have you got anything kind of similar kind of experiences?
Well, my thing is about basic reward and punishment. As a GM, Josh will probably get this, and so will Pat. Is I think when you're a GM, one thing I really love from one of our old GMs, Alex, is that when you did something awesome, he made sure to reward you. And if you did something idiotic, he would punish. Yeah, he wouldn't forget. Like my character in Slay, she bought an enhanced skeleton. And he asked me, what do you want to do with your old skeleton? And I said, oh, I'll keep it in a jar. And he went, oh, are you sure you want to do that? I thought, I'll leave it then. And that came back to haunt me when the company asked for my new enhanced skeleton back, and my character had to spend the rest of the campaign in a jar.
In a jar.
And something that I've done a lot with my players recently, like Josh will know this story, is I recently had them meet a demon. And they had to bargain for truths. They can either receive a truth that they didn't know about their character. Yes, Josh. Or they had to reveal a deep, dark secret. And one of the players had this one that was almost a bit character-breaking, where it was really horrific, and I've not let that slide. But it has come, like a few of the other players have said, like, I really like what you're doing, because it's that whole thing of you're not forgetting, you're not rewarding people for doing bad things. You don't reward characters for being evil, and I've played a lot of evil characters, and they've been my funniest characters because the GM has always punished me.
Yes.
I've never been allowed to get away with being evil, and it's always that thing of how hard can I get away because you're the bad guy. I've had characters who Pat has killed, or my favourite character was a dragon. The whole campaign she was basically Satan. And I was fooling the rest of the party, and it was great because one of our players, Jim, didn't realise until the end when I turned into a dragon. He dropped his character sheet and just went, "You."
Yes.
We've been running it for months, and I turned into a dragon in the end and tried to eat the party, but they defeated me.
She wasn't.
But it was so much fun because I was never rewarded for being that bad person. I think as a GM, it's having that good mix of rewarding characters when they are being good, and not letting them get away when they're bad, because that's what would happen in a real situation. Like, we're playing for fun, we're playing for character, we're not always playing for, this is my fantasy, this is how the world works for me. It's like, no, it works for everyone, you've all got consequences to bounce off each other.
Yeah.
So that's something I really enjoy, when GMs remember the bad things you've done. And it's something that I've been trying to do as well.
It's a really good point. It's certainly getting reward because that's a reward which expands beyond. Here's a big special. Here's a big, very powerful sword for having defeated the big monster at the end. So it's that kind of system of reward and punishment, and the fact that you're getting so much role play out of it is really enhancing your game. But one of the examples you gave though was turning into a dragon and going after the rest of the party. I mean, that's going to PvP. Now that's quite rare. I mean, it's never something that I've had a particularly great time doing. Is anybody else, I mean, obviously other than Emily, because she clearly loves it, really had a very good time, or like a best time role-playing in a PvP kind of game, or where it's just gone that way?
Well, sorry, Chris, go on.
No, you go, Josh.
Okay, it's more of it in general. Things like, well, I've not got any specific stories as to how PvP has affected our players. Through at least one group, we always use the idea that players can't actively dick each other over. They can't stab each other in the back unless it's particularly important story-wise. You can't just go, oh, I nick the paladin's sword because I can. I try to roll persuasion on your player character because I don't agree with what your character's thinking. PvP in players versus players, I feel, should only be put to when your players are bickering. It's in character, not actual mechanical wise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's as a role-play point, an interaction between characters rather than kind of a mechanical thing. But I mean, our PvP stuff has been very limited. We've had a few encounters of it. But I think it's one of those things which is really to do with expectation. If everyone knows that's the game you're going to play, then it works. If it's not something you can kind of spring on people. I mean, Chris, have you had an experience of this at all?
Yes, I mean, going back to the early days, when we were sort of like all 13, 14, 15, sort of like playing games, there was an awful lot of player versus player. And I have a similar, and I don't like it most of the time because I play role-playing games as a cooperative thing, not a, one against each other. But it has to be said that 30 years later, sitting in the pub talking war stories, they're often the stories we come back to. When a character was an assassin, and he would, one of his players did this multiple times. He would be in the party, wait to have done the dungeon, walking out the dungeon with all the loot, and then kill all the other players. He would have, quite often play a magic multi-class and keep one of his classes hidden, just so he could betray the players. And yeah, in some ways, at the time, they weren't great role-playing experiences, but actually looking back, they're some of my fondest memories. But just going to what you were saying about expectations, a lot of sort of con games I've played, or more storytelling games, they're almost entirely driven by player versus player. And that's because there's less plot, there's more about the dynamic interaction between the different characters. And that, it can be really rewarding, but also they tend to be a lot shorter, especially good in one-off sessions. That typical con game, where you can just come in and without any consequences, you don't have to worry about what you're going to play next week or whatever. You just turn up and you play your character to the hilt, and if that drives you in conflict with another player, and you both just go for it and understand what you're doing, it can give some great experiences.
That is great. I've had that in a few con games where it dissolves in that kind of thing, and it's been really awkward sometimes whether it has some gel. But if you have gelled, then it's just flowed as say the consequences of what the players are doing. Pat, I think probably you can we'll start winding up in a little bit, but go for it.
I am sorry, but that just reminded me of my favourite ever story about role-playing. I ran a game once which was set in Arthurian times. It was essentially set after De Mort d'Arthur, and the idea was that the throne of Britain was empty, and all of the characters could potentially be king. Emily took this essentially on herself, and agreed to sneak into a Saxon camp with her friend with the aim to stab him in the back. What happened, Emily? What happened in that encounter?
My character, he found, was it Excalibur's?
He had Excalibur's hilt.
So he was immortal.
No, it's scabbard, sorry. Scabbard.
And me and Alex, again, this is another point, sometimes you can have player conflict. Like, me and Alex decided on the first day we were playing together, it was like, we're going to hate each other. We decided our characters were enemies. And
her character was essentially Blackadder.
Yeah, well, essentially he was Blackadder. Yeah, basically after Alex killed people, I waited for him to turn his back, and I attempted to kill him, but it failed dramatically.
Completely missed.
I completely missed, and we ended up just having this roll around in like puddles of blood because he had just slit the throats of 30 Saxons in their sleep. And it was just in this really horrific thing where then me and Alex, we were both like, no, you're going down. We were determined.
Yeah,
we were going to kill each other. And my character completely failed. He dropped the scabbard.
Yeah, he dropped off his scabbard, and then he just got
yeah, Alex shanked me.
Wiped out. It was just amazing. Just this turnaround of being behind him with the knife, and it's like there is no way this guy is not dead. No.
And again, one of my favourite characters of all time because I knew my role straight away. And no one trusted me. I wasn't trusted with anything because, like, oh, we can't trust Sir Owain.
You were the only pagan.
Yeah.
As well. I don't know if that counts, but you were the one who kept making sacrifices
all the time.
That sounds brilliant. I think we'll take that as a point to end on. It's a great experience, and so you combine together all the roles of freedom and PvP and things like that. So, what have we learned from this today, children? Basically, it's just gelling and having the freedom to do what you do, and just good role play fundamentally. I don't think we've necessarily shed a new brilliant light on the subject, but it's that kind of thing that really makes it work and gives us a good role playing experience. So I think we'll end on that point because we've just run out of time. So I'm going to hand over to Pat, I believe, for the outro and ending on what we're after.
You believe correctly.
Sorry, I've misread it. Emily, pluses and deltas, please. Go ahead.
Right, pluses and deltas, guys. I'll start with me. My pluses, again, I really love talking about role-playing in general and bringing up key things. Delta, I'm worried that everyone's going to get a very bad impression of me. So
What do you mean going to?
all the horrific stories which always seem to happen around my characters or my campaigns. So on that note, I'll hand over to Chris. What was your pluses and deltas?
Plus, it's a nice, relaxed meeting. Good to chat, and just talk stuff through rather than force us to be all creative and stuff. Bad side is that, these sorts of things are always problematic for me because I have a shit memory, and so remembering any particular occurrence is actually quite hard for me. So but relaxed, fun meeting nonetheless.
Hello.
Sorry.
Josh, over to you. What did you like? What didn't you like?
It's always good just discussing the fundamentals of roleplay without it being overly specific. Deltas, apart from the sodding weather and the events of the last few days, I wish I could think of more stories specifically relating to the subject, and it might be worth, if we do one of these discussions in the future, maybe making it a slightly longer one. Because with the usual meetings, we can just go, oh, here's our ideas. But during discussions, it could just go any number of ways.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be nice to have like longer sessions where we can just talk about role-playing games. Mark?
Pluses. I'm trying to think of pluses that nobody else has come up with so far. I think I really enjoy kind of going through hearing people's kind of war stories and the stuff they've done, and particularly learning more about kind of PvP-ish kind of activities and stuff like that. It's kind of inspired me to think in a different way with going into gaming and try a different way of extracting fun from it. Deltas, the fact that my bulb's gone in my room and I'm slowly getting darker and darker as the sun started going down. So hopefully you might be able to see me at the end of it. Otherwise, yeah, that's about it.
Pat?
Oh, hello. My delta would be, I think, to be honest, that me and Em were speaking too much. There was a lot of focus on us and not a lot of focus on anyone else, and we apologise for this. But we do like to talk. Well, I like to talk. I'm talking now. Yes. My plus would be, I love discussions. I would agree with Josh. I think we could do with making maybe these sort of these kind of meetings a bit longer.
And with that, Pat, if you want to
I do the outro. So that was the 66th Think Tank. We learned a lot. We laughed a lot. And if you'd like to see more, again, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Thank you, everyone, for coming. From Chris, Josh, Mark, Emily, and myself.